Hi, my name is Daniel Charles, and I wanted to welcome you to this very powerful edition of the MDCP Political Updates. We want to extend our deepest gratitude to all of our great people who are working hard, organizing across communities to help us listen carefully and be able to document critical issues of national concern as we work towards building a strong development agenda for our movement. But I wanted to say a big thank you today to many of you who've been involved in these listening sections. And as we've agreed, it is important that you know that I will take a moment to provide some weekly updates so that people are not worried about what's going to happen to all of these beautiful research and development ideas that we are documenting. So, going forward, I want you to pay key attention to the press and other media engagement, but particularly through our channel, our Facebook pages, and our other online engagement for these official updates that we will be providing. For the last 7 weeks, we've listened to so many critical issues and we've been able to document them in a way that we are forming systematic process to be able to address them. And I wanted to thank the team for the work that's been done. So, like I said earlier, we will now have these weekly political updates that I will provide specifically on a lot of these issues, and we'll talk about how these issues are going to be um, put together with all the national political priorities as we work towards achieving a lot of our different goals on multiple fronts. But today, I wanted to begin by just sharing a beautiful story from one of the meetings that we had. I felt very, very, very humble and very emotional to have a young kid in one of these meetings who said, Mr. Charles, I wanted to ask you a question. I said, I wanted to ask you a question. I said, go ahead. He said, sir, you have done so many things here from NGO development to education development. Why is it that you believe at this time getting involved in politics is the right step to take? I said, your question was beautiful. And I said, your question reminds me of a couple of weeks ago when several youth leaders, farmers, and market women presented me with the same question. And I will continue to reiterate. From 15 years ago, the passion, the desire hasn't changed. What I want to see and what motivates me, I want to see a country where each and every young person learns, where every young person that is qualified can provide the opportunity and services to our country, can be able to get a job. I want to see a country that empowers our people with a vibrant healthcare system to improve the quality of life. I want to see a country where our citizen security is a priority that is second to none. I want to see a country where we are beginning to rapidly build institutional capacities to compete with the standards of development and not just to follow the standards of development. As a country, we have multiple priorities. But if we begin to look at the critical issues that are required to transform any type of structure, especially a leadership that is struggling in the 21st century, We will never distance the issue of education, technology, healthcare reforms. These are absolutely important. If I saw a group of people that were working to build a transformational development agenda with a very inclusive alliance, and I believe that they will deliver on the capabilities of what will go in such a document, I wouldn't be involved in this. Secondly, all my life, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for change. Quite recently, we just waited for the last 20 years, watching government take office, and we have been hoping that there will be some rapid level of transformation to lead to fundamental changes in the lives of our people. But this wait has been a process that has even resulted into some degree of hatred. But we will not pursue hatred. Instead of waiting, we will take on the mantle to lead, to put ourselves in the front line and offer ourselves when our country at this moment in time is in desperate need of leaders who are capable to meet the challenges of the 21st century and beyond. So we will continue to work in this regard. And this is part of the reason why I will continue to be very active in providing all of the different updates that come through each of the listening session. But today, the initial focus of our political update will be reminding our people on the foundation of democracy. And in many of the meetings, yes, we've been hit hard with critical frustrations about our leaders, about leadership as a whole in the country, about the failures that have come as a result of people voting people who they believe initially will deliver on the capacity or the things they promise. But this time, we want to remind people the foundations of democracy requires all of us, regardless of how we felt, to once again go back and take a deep look at history. All around the world, there are many indications to show people who fought and died for the right to vote. Many people believe it's a sacred obligation. It's not an obligation we take lightly. And the very essence of democracy has been based on your voice, your power, and your ability to vote. In Liberia, we may have not had a couple of massive cases, but in my lifetime, we've seen youth leaders, market women, farmers, students wake up and organize and fight to make a change in a community by mobilizing for candidates who they believe are in alignment with the type of development agenda that they look to see to be more integrated and sustainable from a community to a national development perspective. These people are our everyday heroes. We see them in our schools, in our markets, in our communities, on our farms. Many a times they may not be on the national radio discussing policy positions about development, but they are the ones who remind us very often about why it's important to take our voting as a sacred obligation. And we want to thank them. And yes, I believe that despite the frustration and the challenges we've seen from our own democratic system, especially over the last 20 years, we've seen enough to make a lot of the people give up on this system. But I have a message for you, which I will share with you later. But we want to reiterate the foundation of democracy can only be actively and effectively represented with your voice and your vote. And the structural challenges that are barriers to making you participate are the things that will continue to emphasize that becoming reason enough for you to participate rather than to isolate yourself. Because in the end, like I've said in a lot of these meetings, abstinence is also a choice in the democratic process. But the alternative reality to that is that someone else makes the choice for you. As you stated in several of these meetings, compounding economic, social, and political challenges are leading to frustration not in our country, but in our leadership and trust in our political system. We've underlined several intricacies from the community level to the national level that may be leading to some of these challenges that we will consider overall failure at the national level, or what we call the unproductive nature of our governance system. Some of you have clearly spoken to us about the desire to be able to identify issues around corruption and accountability. But these things are not in isolation of a system. There must be a clear development agenda that requires the input of both policymakers and duty bearers. We must come together and be able to agree on different approaches that are essential to how we can achieve development in a more inclusive way. When policymakers isolate themselves from duty bearers, who eventually are the people who are demanding these changes, it becomes difficult to be able to find a transparent approach to move towards the implementation of these development realities. So, as a result, the compounding complexity of economic, social, and political challenges is something that can be addressed through having a first hand, transparent conversation. One of the hardest things I've shared with you on the road is that leaders must be able to know when not to speak. Sometimes, bulk of the essential thought that we can be able to share when people present problems is by listening and discerning properly rather than always talking and leading. And why these compounding challenges are interconnected to some of our leadership problems, we also have to say to you that competency is becoming an outstanding problem in our society. It's been a long term problem that we've had to address since the end of the war. And then we have had to create conditions to even move towards creating, you know, structural positions across our institutions, from education to health to our other economic institutions, to be able to address the issue of competency gap. And to this date, we have not had a comprehensive study to be able to address what type of robust labor force at this moment is carefully needed to even be able to close the Liberian labor gap and put us on a process towards an irreversible path of sustainable development. The MDCP will continue to work on these type of critical issues with you. But again, we want to remind you, voting is how you claim your seat at the table. It is a powerful way to transform communities. By creating connections from generations to generations and bringing together individuals to take small actions with unbelievable commitment, we continue to build a future that is sustainable for all of us. And this is the work we have to continue to do. Before we leave you on this update, as we prepare for a couple of updates coming in subsequent weeks, we also have to be careful to understand that beyond political rhetorics, individual citizens must build the courage to be able to define what for them looks like real development. Because real development, for as long as we've remembered, it's not a talking game, it's a science. We must be able to develop systematic processes and put these processes into test to see if they are feasible with our economic realities or our political situation. We've had cases, we've had cases where a program can be feasible for another nation, but looks very attractive to your nation. But when you bring down the realities of the implementation, the technical challenges, administrative challenges, create complication that therefore renders these programs and policy as program and policy that you may want to have, but you don't need at the moment because you don't have the institutional capabilities to be able to address them. So we must be able to create, for example, you know, infrastructure. This infrastructure must then be followed with people. The people must be followed by the programs. The programs must then be moved in a direction that we can assess outcomes and impact. These systematic channels must be created, even at the lowest level, and our people must be involved. And as I reminded several of our young people, who basically I know will have questions again after today, and you can always put your questions and comments. Like I said, these updates will come weekly. I want to remind you, yes, yes, the political system may have failed the young people, but disengagement will only hand power to those that want to benefit from your silence. Don't let that happen in 2029. It's time to organize. It's time to keep moving. It's time to keep engaged. It's time to move for a development that you can lay your hands on. True, transparent engagement with your next set of leaders. I look forward to working with you on the road, and we will not stop listening. Thank you.